I am David Benioff, executive producer and writer.
I am Dan Weiss, executive producer and writer. This is Game of Thrones.
We talked about the title sequence last year, didn't we?
It's a new one, though. We had to fight the good fight to scrape up the money in the budget to add some new elements to the credit sequence, but we thought it was important to keep it growing as the world of the show grows.
Angus won another Oscar this year, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Angus Wall.
In his spare time, he's an Oscar-winning editor.
He's a man of many talents.
The tree is still my favorite part. The Godswood tree. Look at that. It's
very
beautiful.
Pretty, very pretty.
There's a later title sequence. What is it? Episode 4, where we do the moon jump, like over the astrolabe?
Yeah. Oh yeah, one of the later ones that changes.
When we go to Karth, right?
He does a super wide jump up into...
It's probably Ford when we go to Karth.
Yeah, I think so.
Carolyn Strauss, the famous ostrich sigil.
Yeah.
Crazy thing about hearing this theme is like it's impossible to imagine the show now without it, and we came so close to not having Ramin Djawadi as our composer. And he came up with that theme in about, what was it, like a week?
I think he wrote
it
over a weekend, and it was about 90% there. I think he revoiced it somehow and put cellos where there were violins, and that was really about all that changed.
So this was not originally the opening scene of the episode. Actually, the season and the episode was supposed to begin as it does in the book at Dragonstone. And we're going to have a cold open as we did with the first season. As in all George's books, after a death, the prologue ends, and we were going to do that here as well. But when we put it all together and looked at it, it just wasn't quite working for us. So we decided we love the way that Alan shot this. And it's the Dubrovnik setting is so beautiful. We ended up switching the order around.
Yeah. A good deal of the order for this episode. Credit goes to Frank Dolger, who did a really excellent job of helping us restructure this one.
Yeah, I think Frank said, "Why don't you guys come in and take a look at this?" And just reordered some of the scenes. And we're like, "All right, that sounds kind of weird." And we went in, and sure enough, it was working a lot better. I think part of it is just the Dragonstone scenes work so well, but it's, you're introducing a whole set of new characters, and there's just something about being away for a year and coming back to characters that you already know so well, like Sansa and Joffrey and...
Like Sir Dantos.
And Sir Dantos.
Who ended up looking awfully like Captain America in his armor. The Captain America armor.
2 cups. It's not much at all. Please, have another cup.
You sure, Your Grace?
Yes.
Jack Gleason,
Celebrate my name day.
Trinity College Dublin Scholar
Like?
of 2012.
It's a testament to Jack's genius that he's one of the nicest guys on the planet and best read and gentle, sweet young fellow. Likes to smoke a pipe and read Kierkegaard and so convincingly plays such a psychopath.
Yeah.
People around the world hate him.
Someday he's going to be teaching ancient Hebrew to a bunch of undergraduates, and they're going to go and watch their professor on DVD maiming and torturing people. It's a little Caligulan.
Dantos had to do 14 takes of that, and of course it's real wine, so he was so hammered by the end that he went skinny dipping in the Adriatic.
This was a gorgeous location.
Is it the Adriatic?
I think, yeah, this is facing the Adriatic.
Thank God.
This was a beautiful location on a beautiful day.
So, for the first few times I saw this, I was like, wait a second, Toman's chewing gum. Look at that, he's chewing gum.
Not
but
chewing
the
gum.
truth is he's not. We went back and looked at the dailies. He's chewing grapes that were right there as part of the set. So there was an anxious day or two where we got worried that we had a prince anachronistically chewing gum.
To
But
close his mouth with visual effects. The puke rig on Dantos was actually relatively involved, because we needed him to vomit up a large quantity of wine. Very warm day for Peter to be wearing what he was wearing on this day. By the end of a couple of these days on the battlements, by the end of the day, he was pretty much hallucinating. He's got black leather under red leather under armor.
Been here ruling the kingdoms.
What a fine job you've done. Look at you.
just looking at that shot, that's the whole reason we went to Dubrovnik. King's Landing is supposed to be a coastal city a walled coastal city. And season 1, as good a job as Gemma and her production team did with the sets, the incredibly beautiful sets, we weren't shooting in a coastal city. So you just always had this bit, for us at least, of a disconnect where it just didn't quite seem right somehow. And
even if you get outside in Belfast, you never get this.
Yeah, the sunlight's
light
just
in
not the right
Belfast.
quality. Right, so coming here and being able to start the season with this in the background, it just made it feel so real for us, because it is real. It's really a medieval walled city. Look at that. Beautiful camera work from Kramer Morgenthau.
Yeah, I think this next scene coming up is one of the many places where Kramer's contribution really comes to the fore. I mean, he made everything look like a painting.
This White Raven was incredibly hard to find. I think we had to fly him in from Germany, was it?
Apparently they're easy to find in Canada and very, very rare in Europe. But there are quarantine issues when you're trying to get them in from the New World.
Yeah, so it was months of, was it Lisa McAtackney who was dealing with it?
She was the unsung hero on the White Raven.
For a 5-year winter. If it lasts any longer.
We were talking for months about we're going to have to try to CG a black raven white, and that wasn't going to work.
Allegedly a very expensive thing to do.
Yeah. So this is a white raven with a slightly off-white head, but you really never see the head. Well, come on, this is the whole point of the audio commentary. It's that insiders can learn some inside details.
Inside details that's not really a white raven.
Whitish, off-white. The first time we hear the Rains of Castamere.
Notice Tyrion whistling the Lannister theme, which will show up in the score repeatedly over the course of the season in one form or another.
We said, Ramin, you've got to compose the most catchy possible theme for Rains of Castamere, because we have to recognize it immediately when we hear it. Book readers will know why. And it took him about 2 days.
Yeah.
I pissed off the edge of the wall. I slept in a sky cell. I fought with the hill.
Lena's facial expressions in the scene just kill me.
The two of them together throughout just are such a great anchor for the whole season. Just they're getting them together and having them play off each other. They're good friends in real life, and the way that their friendship in real life translates to such believable hatred on screen is one of the great joys I get every time I watch an episode of the show.
Yeah, I think it's one of the sort of unexpected bonuses we got with casting these two is that they've been friends, as Dan said, they've been friends for so long, and I think Peter actually helped us convince Lena to take the part when we offered it to her, and they share an apartment when they're together in Belfast, glorious Malone Square, and that closeness allows them, I think, to push each other quite far in their scenes together and exhibit.
Yeah, there's a level of comfort there that translates into some really great work.
North has risen up against us.
I tried to stop it.
Did you? You failed.
This look she gives after he tells her he might be able to get Jaime back is it's priceless.
I'm going to put a price on it. It's a $150,000 look.
You are here to...
Might just get his Uncle Jaime back.
How?
One?
Arya, little animal, she disappeared.
Disappeared? What? In a puff of smoke?
I think it's a testament to Kramer's genius as cinematographer that he shoots this scene and it looks like have that strong Dubrovnik sunlight that we just left from the name day scene, and we're in fact shooting inside the paint hall in Belfast.
Kramer spends a lot of time looking at paintings and looking at the old masters, and it really shows in his work. Move over to Winterfell.
I think that's a painting right there. Look at that. Beautiful.
One piece of the great effects work by Rayner and Steve and their VFX team. Got Lord Boring.
Lord Ledronic is his name in the script. I don't think he's actually named
on camera.
But yeah, which is apparently the old Celtic word for boring.
This is just wanted to get inside of what Bran's life is like now that he's Lord of Winterfell. In one take, he actually said drunk women, which was funny in its own way.
Just looking at the costumes and seeing before we hired Michelle Clopton, I think the one aspect of production we were most nervous about, and we were nervous about every aspect, but I think the one that, for me at least, stood out in my mind the most were the costumes, because you see it go wrong so often in fantasy or science fiction where the characters just look ridiculous. The costumes look brand new, or they just look kind of over the top. And what she managed to do was create a series of costumes for the various different characters who inhabit very different worlds, here in the north, down in King's Landing in the south, and which look completely organic to those worlds, look totally natural, and at the same time don't look like anything exactly from our world. It's not as if she's looking at pictures from the 16th century and just imitating those. This is not obviously based on any real historical period, or it's got influences from medieval history, but it's a different planet. We're not on planet Earth right now, and so there's always something a little bit off, whether it's in Bran's costume or...
He's really created a unique vocabulary for the show that's kind of self-consistent to the show, and so I think it started to have... Didn't Helmut Lang do a bunch of Night's Watch line of clothing? So yeah, it's really... I think we told her that would happen, and we were very happy to be proven right on that one.
Here we are on Wolf Vision.
Yeah. Trickier to accomplish. Not as tricky as one of the scenes coming up, but trickier for visual effects to accomplish than one would think between visual effects and color. That's actually a stolen shot from season 1. Here we are walking through the Godswood with Bran, Osha, and Hodor.
Bran in his caboose.
Yeah, sooner or later, but by the end of the season, Bran gets too big for poor Christian to carry around on his back.
Isaac is now 6 feet tall with a beard, so it's...
We didn't want to be responsible for Christian Nairn's orthopedic surgery bills, so we built Bran a cart.
You've been having those dreams again.
I don't dream.
Everyone dreams.
I don't.
Christian has a star tattoo on his face, and I think that's why he has that scar there covering it.
Yeah. Christian was a DJ, local Belfast DJ.
Did they?
Natalia is one of those people who's so different from the character as envisioned in the books. She really has nothing to do with the book description, but everybody, including George, when we saw her audition, were immediately won over by just the feral quality that she brought to the role and how willing she was to go to that place and how easy and comfortable she was in it.
This shot exhibits the brilliance of the VFX team where, unlike, say, looking at the dragons, we don't want it to look like visual effects. We want it to look like Daenerys' Khalasar is wandering through this vast desert, the Red Waste, and should look absolutely real. And that shot, we didn't actually have her in a desert, so that shot was really up to the VFX team to look right. And of course, anything to do with the dragons is up to them. And they've evolved so beautifully.
I mean, they were so great at the end of last year, and I think they've taken a real huge leap forward just in the realism of the way they move and the way if you just watch the way the dragon's trying to keep its balance with its wings and its legs and how uneasy it is on her shoulder as it would be. They just did such a fantastic job with it.
They each have a personality. I mean, you can't see it here because you're only looking at Drogon, but when you see the three of them together, and Drogon's the alpha, and they each have slightly different personality tics, which is fun to watch.
I like this here. What it does the little dog spin around.
Yeah, gets comfortable. Ian Glenn's one of those actors who you don't even have to give him any dialogue. You just point the camera at his face, and whatever he's doing is automatically interesting. Don't remember a bad take from Ian in 2 years of working with him.
Die screaming. How do I make starvation scream?
Whenever I'm reading a book, I want him to read the book to me. It sounds so much better in his voice than it does in my... It'd be a full long, actually pretty easy job for him now since I have more or less stopped reading books since we started doing this show.
Andrea might get jealous.
It would be weird. 3 a.m. Came into the bedroom with Ian Glenn, sat him down, handed him over David Copperfield.
It's still kind of shocking to me. It's been a while now, and Emilia's world famous, but remembering the first time she stepped into Nina Gold's office in London and auditioned with 2 scenes from the first season and had to first play the meek, timid Daenerys, the abused younger sister who's never really taken an act of her own volition in her life, and then play the Khaleesi, the young princess who steps out of her husband's funeral pyre unscathed, and she could do it both. The fact that an actress with so little experience and who's so young could embody both those really disparate characters was just awe-inspiring.
She looks really hot and tired here. It's because it was a brutally hot day, and she was really hot and tired. She did an amazing job of powering through what was a very difficult day of shooting for all these guys, because they're wearing heavy leathers, and it was like 90-something degrees, and there was no shade.
There's not as much Dothraki in Season 2 as in Season 1, but these two are both such pros with David Peterson's language. We're excited to have David Peterson back again for Season 3 for creation of High Valyrian.
The shot took probably 12 takes to get right, if not more. Alan's such a perfectionist, especially when it comes to these kinds of moments, that when getting the horses to hit their marks in unison while they're all riding off in 3 separate directions was very tricky.
But then it was in all the trailers, so it was worth it.
It was well worth it.
Another beautiful, Alan doesn't like calling them establishing shots, but let's call it an establishing shot.
What does he call them?
He calls it a Tarkovsky... I don't know.
Should we ruin it for people and tell them it's actually Belfast and it was about 62 degrees this day? All that breath is fake.
Basically, we're in Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland extends to Craster's Keep, and then anything north of Craster's Keep is Iceland.
There aren't really trees in Iceland to speak of. There are little stunted, teeny trees, but there aren't big forests. We meet Dolores Ed for the first time. A welcome addition to the show.
Doesn't really matter what Samwell's doing, he makes me laugh. John Bradley is truly a comic genius. I know the word genius gets tossed around too often, but anything he does, it's just brilliant.
It's another guy who never gives you a bad take.
No.
Foul. It's beyond foul. What does he do with his son?
Kid Harington was one of those guys, again, remember the first time he walked into Nina's office, he looked about 14, he had really short hair, clean shaven, and I remember looking at him and thinking, God, I hope this kid's good, because he just looked the way I imagined Jon Snow, and he had that kind of brooding quality and the presence.
Haven't had any good wine.
But it wasn't until he opened his mouth and actually started acting out the scene that we realized this kid's got it.
He can deliver an intensity that I think a lot of, especially young male actors, try for and can't really carry, but he does such an excellent job with it. He's also very funny in his scenes with Sam, too, though. He does a great kind of straight man, comic man, kind of Laurel and Hardy interplay between those two guys.
But now you're in the north. The real north.
Lad meant no harm.
Not really Laurel and Hardy.
Catch that pretty little bastard.
And he's a great breakdancer.
Huge.
We'll talk to your daughters.
Totally does.
Yeah.
Now, sit down.
Everybody needs a hobby.
James Cosmo, one of the things that's great about it, aside from the fact that he's a brilliant actor, James, as Mormont, he's huge. And I don't think I even realized how big he was until we were doing ADR.
He was covered in all those.
Yeah, he's always wearing these massive robes.
Everybody looks so big all the time.
But we had a looping session with him in a studio in LA, and he was wearing a t-shirt, and I was like, this guy looks like an NFL lineman.
He must have 22-inch arms. He's a huge guy.
Comes in handy for scenes like the later one where he throws John up against the wall, and you realize just how powerful this guy is. That's not stunts in there. There's no effects in there. It's just James tossing Kid against the wall.
But once he was just a poor black crow. And now he's a king beyond the wall.
Craster's Keep set that Gemma built is really beautifully grim and horrible. You can't see all of it in this scene, but the future of the show, we will be seeing more of it. And there are pigs and donkeys inside the hall with them. And
it's cinema verite because it really smells the way. Unfortunately, we can't do smell-o-rama with the show, but it truly does smell the way you'd imagine Craster's Keep would smell.
Kenny, the animal handler. He breeds medievally authentic pig.
This is the first time we see Gilly coming up right here.
cold winds arising.
Played so beautifully by Hannah Murray.
Let them come.
Gilly, who goes on to be such an important part of the show.
Wife.
And I think she was the only one we auditioned for the part. We had seen her before and liked her so much, and we just thought she's our Gilly, so let's get her.
Better to live free than die a slave.
Two of Crester's daughters are actually Alan Taylor's daughters, dressed up as
Any man
wildlings.
lays a hand on one of my wives,
Not sure where they're hiding right now.
loses their hand.
I think they were outside.
And I see this one staring too long. I might just gouge his eyes out.
Seems like Jon Snow gets stuck with that expression on his face at the end of a lot of scenes.
So a long, painful education for Jon Snow.
Yeah. As David mentioned, this was the scene that for a long time, and in the books, began the episode.
Come to us in our darkness. We offer you these false gods. Take them and cast your light upon us.
It's a really gorgeous shot, that last shot of the flames and the castle in the background.
Dark and full of terrors.
Yeah, the VFX team this season just did such sensational work. Team led by Steve Kolbeck, VFX producer, and Rainer Gombos, VFX supervisor. People talk about feature quality, but I don't think there are that many features that really do have this quality, at least not with anywhere close to the budget that we have.
They're just such perfectionists.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they really, really care a lot about making things sit in the shots as if they were really there in the world.
I think they're very much invested in the show as a whole, not trying to create like a brag book, like look at me type shots. Yeah, there could have been a way to show Dragonstone a lot more and make it a lot more visually impactful, and it was really purely about making it seem real. Like, I mean, what would that castle look like back there? And the truth is, it would be mostly hidden. It's mostly silhouette, so you don't see very much of it. But for us, that's what makes it so beautiful, because it looks real and it adds to the mystery of it and so forth and so on. But sometimes you can't hide the VFX, obviously, when you're looking at dragons. We didn't find those in Belfast.
It's testament to their work that so much of their best work is hidden. You'd really need to point it out shot by shot, but it has such a cumulative effect of just situating you in a world that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah. And Pike in episode 2 is just a gorgeous looking castle, and that's one that easily could have gone awry because it's a very specific look, and it's a fairly fantastical look. I mean, I can't really think of a castle in our world that looks anything like Pike, but they came up with something that looks completely natural and gorgeous, and I think very true to the description in the books.
This is a fun introduction to Stephen, Carice, and Liam. The three new principals that we've got on the show, playing Stannis, Melisandre, and Davos, respectively. Melisandre especially is a very difficult role to cast because there just aren't that many people who have Carice's gravity and presence who also look the way Carice looks. It's a pretty short list, and she was at the very top of it, and we were very, very fortunate to have her on the show.
It's also, something that actors cast for a single episode, but so much weight falls on them, and Oliver Ford Davies here, it's just, he's only in 2 scenes, but he does such a fantastic job. A poor performance here would have really thrown off this entire section of the episode, and he just completely delivered.
And I declare upon the honor of my house that my beloved...
Here we are in Stannis' map room, which features one of our favorite props on the show, which is a table. The map table that they're all sitting around is actually a scale map of Westeros that he uses for his military planning, and the detailing on it is really, really gorgeous. Some really great work from Gemma and her team.
Jamie Lannister, the Kingslayer, call him what he is.
It's one of those things about the show is that people spend so much time working on something to get it exactly right, and often you barely see it. I mean, we see so little of the map table. I mean, you could easily have a shot just panning over the entire table, but we see so few details of it, but it's all there. I mean, all of Westeros is there in glorious painted wood.
It just gives you the option when you've been working with people like Gemma and like Michelle and all the people who were Gordon, prop master, people who are creating the world. It really lets you don't have to hide things. You can kind of come in at any level of detail, and the workmanship is there. You know, if you wanted to get in really close on this table, you would see the world that you know from the credit sequence all laid out there. Copper and wood.
I think the closest we see it is when Davos is pushing some ships around in episode 2.
Well, the end of episode 2. Probably not looking at it then, though.
He has no need for ships.
I'm sure he doesn't.
Yeah.
Your eyes are elsewhere. Unless you're really into maps.
Who'd steal the northern half of my kingdom. I've always served thieves according to their deserts, as you well know, Sir Davos. Joffrey, Renly, Robb Stark, they're all thieves. They'll bend the knee or I'll destroy them.
I love the way Stephen captures the glorious humorlessness of Stannis Baratheon in this scene.
I mean, looking at Stannis there, it's the subtlety of Michelle's costumes that always gets me. She could have easily put like a stag's head just emblazoned on the right over the breast, made it very obvious, but she figures out a way to get the sigils into the costumes in different ways for each one. You know, the antlers and Stannis is there.
So I love the way Carissa's costume just pops in all the grays and blacks and browns of the room.
Now, originally, the way this was written and the way it was originally shot was that Crescent drinks, he hands it to Melisandre, Melisandre drinks before seeing that anything has gone wrong with Crescent, and then Crescent collapses. In the cutting room, and I forget whose idea it was, but it might have been Frank's actually.
Yeah, he flopped him.
She sees that Crescent is starting to become disabled by the poison, starting to kill him, and then she drinks anyway. And it's just kind of a...
I love this shot. This is Crescent's departing soul point of view shot.
Yeah.
And I love this shot. Bring us into Robb's camp.
Hearing the Stark theme again. One of my favorite of Ramin's creations.
A little bit of main title theme thrown in there. We talked for a long time about how we were going to do the wolves this year, because we knew, first year we knew we could get away with dogs. Second year we knew that wasn't going to work. We went down the road of full CG wolves and spent a fair amount of time looking at some designs and tossing around design ideas for those, and we realized they were going to be prohibitively expensive and still not really look as real as the rest of the world. So Raynor and Steve ultimately ended up recommending that we use real wolves shot in Los Angeles and scaled up to direwolf size. So we end up with what I think will be, as you will see shortly, a very real looking wolf, because it is a real looking wolf that is larger than any wolf that actually exists. And they're very seamlessly integrated into the seams.
Poor Nikolaj spent more than half his season in chains in a muddy pen in Northern Ireland.
This was his birthday, wasn't it?
No, the birthday is episode 6, or 7, sorry, the Alton Lannister scene. There's Grey Wind.
There.
It's just something, I mean, as good as the dogs were last season, they're still dogs, you know, and we're talking about looking at a real wolf and knowing you're looking at a wolf, that changes everything.
There's only so much you can do to a dog with breeding and hair prosthetics and whatever else to make it look like a wolf. To make it just occupy space like a wolf and hold itself carry itself like a wolf.
Again, it's, you know, a testament to how good these actors are that you see Nikolaj reacting in fear to this wolf that's actually a tennis ball at the end of a stick.
Yeah, the centerpiece of the entire scene is not actually there, and they're both playing against it and reacting to it as if it were. Alan's original desire in this was to see the wolf's breath steam up Nikolaj's collar in an homage to an Alien shot, but we realized that
Aliens or Jurassic Park?
Was it Jurassic Park or Alien? It was one of those, definitely
the
one.
rear view mirror
Yeah,
thing?
it may have been. That it was, was not to be.
It's in Aliens too, though. You're right.
Was not to be. The collar wasn't shiny enough.
Like dead bodies.
Little King's Landing overview.
Yeah, beautiful shot, beautiful establishing shot of King's Landing there, entirely created by our VFX team. The great thing about those shots is you can look at them again and again, you pick out new details. I mean, they've got soldiers walking around, they've got smoke rising up, they've got carriages in the streets. It's just lavish detail.
I love this thing. I love the noise.
No one's had time in the Chamber of the Hand to redecorate since John Aaron's death, which is why the birds are still on the walls.
Mm-hmm. Nice little back crack added in there by Peter, sound designer.
Same at Peter Dinklage. It's like, wow, that's impressive.
Peter's a
It's
very method.
Command.
This
One of my favorite scenes in the first episode.
This one worked out very well and was all the more impressive for being crammed onto the end of an already very busy day, and Alan was despaired of being able to get what he needed to make it work. But
he works well when he's despairing.
Yeah, that's one of his. Unfortunately, we probably shouldn't tell people this because now everybody knows it, and he's going to be brutalized by every studio he ever works for. But the more anxious he is, the better his work is.
When boys and girls live in the same home,
I just end up caught up in their performances and saying nothing when I'm supposed to be saying something.
even brothers and sisters develop certain affections. And when those affections become common knowledge, well, that is an
Just watching Lena's anger just start to well up and overflow inside, and just watching the stony face she keeps it behind until it's time to let it go.
Yeah, it's funny because I can barely hear it right now, but I'm just watching their faces and their eyes. You've got two actors who are so intelligent, and you see that intelligence in their eyes.
Sees him.
None of this would have worked without the two of them.
Cut his throat. Stop. Wait. I changed my mind. Let him go.
I like it when Cersei has fun, you know?
Yeah. Seems like she's having more fun.
Mm-hmm. She can really exercise her power, and a lot of people have been annoying her.
Power is power.
The Queen strikes back.
Appropriate use of the Lannister theme.
Wings and your halls to locate the star.
AKA Reigns of Castamere.
I would very much appreciate it.
It's one of my favorite shots coming up here.
Yeah, it's a great shot of one of Varys' little birds.
Letting us know that Littlefinger knows that Varys knows.
I am, Your Grace. I offer your cousin's peace.
This kid, Carl Davies, is fantastic. He's only in 4 scenes, I think, the whole season, but he's phenomenal.
Yeah, really, really
Second, my father's
great actor.
must be returned to us so he may rest beside his brother and sister in the crypts beneath Winterfell. And the remains of
And this
all
is just a shout out to the background talent on the show. You know, looking around that table, and in this scene, so many of the northern camp scenes. Later on, there's a great scene where I won't give it away, but we're involving Jaime. Although, if you're listening to the audio commentary, I don't think you probably watched all the episodes, but the Northern Irish extras are just phenomenal, so good and so devoted to it. You know, really, a lot of these guys grow out their hair and grow out their beards all year long so that they fit into the world more appropriately, and it gives us a lot more freedom when we're cutting it, because you can look pretty much any direction, and you see these guys who are just completely part of the world and completely into the scene, you know, whichever moment it is.
And they're really, the weather in Northern Ireland is not always forgiving, and they're just up for it. They'll be out for 12, 13 hours in some pretty brutal conditions, and they always maintain a great attitude, and they're just always fun to be around.
Yeah, their hours are ridiculous. I mean, they have to show up sometimes at the paint hall 4 o'clock for a bus that's going to take them to location, and don't hear them complaining.
It's fun watching Richard and Alfie play off each other, given what's to come. knowing where that relationship is going to go.
It's one of the great things about the series, watching these friendships develop. All these young actors, most of whom didn't know each other before the show, have become such close friends, and it's always a little bit weird to see them out of context, you know, at some DVD party or something, and hang out with Richard and Alfie, and obviously they're nothing like their characters, but it's, you know, you spend so much time watching them in costume, playing Rob and Theon, and then you're reminded all over again, God, these guys are really good actors because they're nothing like that.
And you spend a night out on the town with them in London, and you're reminded that, wow, these guys are 25 years old, and
really
I'm
old.
not.
Don't do it, Rob. It's a really bad idea.
This is the "you should listen to your mother" scene.
Michelle Fairley. You know, there's so many instances with this show where I think of how much luck we had and just things kind of went our way when they so easily could not have. And, you know, we talked about Ramin Djawadi before, a composer we found really, truly at the last minute, thanks to Evian Clean, our music supervisor, who suggested him. And Ramin turned out to be the absolute right composer for the show. Michelle Fairley was also a bit of luck that we found her and that she happened to be available when we needed her.
What are we fighting for if not for that?
It's more complicated than that, you know it is.
It's now, for me, completely impossible to imagine anyone else playing Catelyn Stark. She just brings so much power to the role.
It's a role that starts out as kind of in a more or less dutiful mother-wife place, and so quickly goes to such a claws out, you know, lioness protecting her cubs place that it's hard to imagine anybody
I don't
else.
think she'd appreciate being called a lioness, Dan.
Lioness is a compliment.
Yeah, it's a Lannister thing.
Oh, well, if you're gonna get literal about it. If you're gonna get literally fictional about it.
Why in the name of all the gods would
Because
you...
I need you to negotiate with Renly Baratheon.
Of course, Catelyn's made some mistakes of her own.
She's definitely made a lot of mistakes.
Arresting Tyrion, bad idea.
I just love the two of these guys together. Their relationship just is so believable. Which I attribute in part to the fact that they like each other so much in real life and that they enjoy hanging out so much in real life. But I really do feel like she's not quite, probably not quite old enough to be Richard's mother, but I'm still buying it.
For good.
They bred young in those days, too.
Yeah, I guess in those days she would have been old enough to be Richard's mother.
Michelle's one of our Northern Irish actors. Our headquarters for the show is Belfast, of course, and most of our crew is Northern Irish, and Michelle's, heads up the Northern Irish contingent of our cast, along with Conleth Hill playing Varys.
With whom
they
she
grew up in
went
the
to
same town.
Yeah, right, went to school, right?
Yeah. And Conleth's younger brother, Ronan Hill, is our sound man.
Who per pound can probably shout louder than anybody I can think of.
Decided that Joffrey wasn't going to be happy with his father's interior decorating, or his purported father's interior decorating. Just way too many brass vines and kind of bucolic scenes on the walls, and it's not who Joffrey is.
His father was an outdoorsman and a hunter, and Joffrey's more of an indoor fascist.
Perhaps that if not, we need her. They'll never give Jamie back to us for Sansa alone.
I think they might. They're weak.
I think Gemma did a fantastic job of creating Joffrey's throne room, which you won't see for a number of episodes yet in its full glory, but this is the first hint of it that you get. And she really kind of designed the room around the look of the Iron Throne and the sharpness of the Iron Throne and the wrought black iron of the Iron Throne.
Becomes a bit of a plot point later in the season. Facing outwards now. A couple of shots, it won't be.
No one believes this foul gossip.
Someone believes it. Father had other children.
Jack Gleason apparently wants to go into academia, does not want to pursue acting as a lifetime career. I think anyone listening to this should start a letter writing campaign to convince him to change his mind.
Yeah, he's boy genius.
I like that moment there.
Yeah, the necklace is facing backwards.
What you just did is punishable by death.
Scene with Esme Bianco and Maisie D.
Put some clothes on. Both of you are working tonight.
And Littlefinger's new upscale brothel.
This isn't some 5 copper bawdy house in Hayseed Hall.
It's a set that was actually built in a wild castle built in the 20s in the Irish countryside by a very rich, very eccentric person whose name escapes me at the moment.
Don't call him Littlefinger. He doesn't like it. Lord Baelish.
That line is in there for Carolyn Strauss.
Yeah, lid for every pot.
Always saying a lid for every pot.
Lord Commander. Good to see you.
It's just a reflection of her rosy view of the world. Here we get to the nasty business.
The gold cloak costumes really turned out well. I mean, that was one of the ones we were worried about. It could easily go so far wrong. Whenever you put a lot of gold in something, it can get cheesy pretty quickly, but Michelle did a fantastic job with it.
Someone who doesn't care what Littlefinger thinks.
This great performance here from one of our stuntmen, Jimmy O'D, who's the redheaded gold cloak holding the baby, ordered to execute the baby and can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just all in his eyes. And we weren't sure, stuntmen are great at what they do, but they're generally not actors, and Jimmy delivered.
Enough. Get it done. Kill the bastard.
There's Jimmy.
Nice job from the baby as well.
Baby did well.
It's a very good-natured baby. It was hard. Took a long time for him to cry.
Antonia Christopher is her wonderful Megan. A montage like this, you just basically have to give all the credit to Alan Taylor and Kramer.
A lot of these were very specific sequences and shots, even that he had in mind, that he was told originally there was no time for on his schedule, and he managed to find places in his other scenes to slot them in with Bernie Caulfield and Chris Newman's help, and it adds so much to the sequence and really gives you a sense of what's going on that otherwise would have had to be covered by a piece of really ungainly exposition.
The return of Tobo Mott. This is one of those locations where you're just aided so much by being in Dubrovnik, because you look out here and you see that glorious coast behind you.
He made it himself. Find it.
This is, what was the name of this road? Just,
don't remember.
Dark Hollows or something mystical. This is just absolutely beautiful road in Northern Ireland, which looks exactly like that.
Yeah.
I have a picture of this road that I took with my iPhone that's hanging above my bed now. It's just such a fantastic location. And we've been waiting to see Arya the entire episode and saved her for this magnificent final shot. Congratulations to Alan Taylor and Kramer Morgenthau. Thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you, guys. Hope you enjoy the rest of the commentary tracks.